Here we go.
Why are you doing this?
I remember.
Imagine being so programmed that you have strong emotions around a subject and you don't even know why.
The question was, would anyone detect that we were sane? The answer was, no. No one ever did.
The controversy regarding the myth of mental illness and psychiatry is not about science or medicine, it's about power.
It's June 2025. Now, over the past decade plus, I've talked extensively about the liberal arts theoretical pseudoscience of psychology and exposing it as the fraud that it is. And it's not just me saying this. There are many people within the so-called profession have come out and said, yes, it's all fraudulent. And I've highlighted, for example, the Rosenhan experiment. And if you're not familiar with that, look that up. And I've highlighted this in overlays over the years as well. This liberal arts theoretical pseudoscience of psychology uses people as guinea pigs for experimental drugs all the time, most of the time without even their knowledge. And I know this firsthand, and I've shared a story from a firsthand perspective when someone that was in my trust was being experimented on, and when I took over trust over them, I was asked by these so-called professionals if I would allow them to continue with all these experiments. And it's not just drugs, but there's also physical torture that they do. And unfortunately, this individual would have passed away several years later from all this nonsense. But recently I was reminded of something that I recall when the time I worked in the mental health industry after leaving law. How people are baited, lured to become part of that system, which is very destructive to them. And I even shared in other videos how these people within that system were asking me to help them get out. And they felt trapped. Now, one of the things that I've noticed was how they had the frontline workers would call people up after people would stop, say for example, attending these air quotes voluntary organizations, nonprofit, to bring them back in. And people would say, well, no, I feel better, etc. But they're baited to come back in. But what the trap is initially for these people is how, for example, they're going through a hard time, or maybe they have physical disabilities, but the quickest, easiest way for someone to get, for example, on a disability is by using a so-called psych evaluation, psychology evaluation, and that will expedite greatly their ability to get disability. And that is the trap. And so many people, whether they're looking at for something temporary or something maybe long-term, get lured into this and find their lives are being destroyed by this pseudoscience. And I do recall over the years just meeting people randomly, for example, who were part of this, and they would complain and everything else. But see, once you're in the system, they say, oh no, we're just going to do an evaluation, and that turns into another meeting, and before you know it, they're prescribing these drugs. And if you're gullible enough, you start taking these drugs, and then you have to start going to therapy. It's a money scheme. It's all a scam. People experience things in their lives that are temporary, or circumstances which are also temporary. And things change, people's minds change. And one of the things that you learn when you study this liberal arts, theoretical pseudoscience of psychology, is you're not really healing anyone or helping anyone. You're just listening. And these people who do these things are just glorified busybodies. And they obtain, for example, degrees so that their mere opinion carries more weight than just an average person. And at times I've even noticed, for example, in comment sections where someone would be challenging something that I've said, and they would bring up for no reason how they have a degree or something in this pseudoscience, and I'd shut them down real quick. They use that as a form of intimidation. I've highlighted, for example, as well, how this liberal arts, theoretical pseudoscience of psychology, is being used as a weapon against the people and individuals. It all starts with individuals, and then it becomes a foundation for imposing that on society. But people have to be very, very careful when they talk to even, for example, a worker that's not part of that system, because they will bait you in and try to get you to concede to something and say, oh, it's temporary, yes, all this other nonsense. And then once you get in, you don't get out. And these things are part of your permanent record. And they'll say, oh, no matter what you say to these fake doctors, it's all confidential. What they don't tell you is that it's confidential, that the person down the street can't get access to that information. However, one example would be a court order. A court can order that to be released, and whatever intimate details of your life you've shared, now other people are going through that material and perhaps even using it against yourself. But people are lured and baited into this industry, and they become a number. Now, why do, say, for example, these non-profit organizations try to bring people back to them? Because it's about numbers. They have to keep their numbers up so that they can continue having funding. If their numbers drop, then they'll get less funding. Less funding means less money, and perhaps jobs are lost, or somebody has to take a pay cut, whatever. But it's all about money. Everything is a fraud. Everything in this world is fake, and it has to be. I've discussed this in videos as well. So I just want to bring this as an awareness. Perhaps you or you know someone or run into someone who may be considering this as an option. I'm saying be very mindful, because what you do will have long-term impact on your life and your well-being. Now, I'm not stating or implying what people should say, think, or do. I'm simply providing more information so people can make a better informed conclusion on what they will be doing or not doing. And that's all I really want to say. Things to think about. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
First thing that they did, it was very interesting. They did this in China, so they get this unknown, right? So what is one of the first things that they roll out is a mental health plan. Same thing in the United States. No sooner was this announced as a national emergency, and they rolled out a mental health plan, and they said that the average American did not have the internal fortitude to endure a disaster. And so we were all being unofficially declared as mentally ill, needing the help of the health professionals, and we were not of sound mind to be able to deal with this crisis that we're seeing happening right now.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.